Hi, everyone. I just wanted to welcome you to my new podcast. Um, if you clicked on this video or if you've downloaded the podcast, you'll know by now that it is entitled In the Nick of Time. I wanted to thank everyone that voted on my Instagram to name it, and was the clear winner, I think, by like over 80%. So I appreciate you all for voting. Just a little bit about this podcast. Although I think that my YouTube channel and a lot of what I do online is food based, I want to be able to have different open topics with interesting individuals and with a range of things: food, lifestyle, morals, clothes, whatever, travel when we can travel again, and just keep it going in that respect. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. This podcast is sponsored in part by Dion, which is a lifestyle and accessories brand founded in 2018, offering carefully selected statement pieces, vintage and custom made originals, bringing a piece of art to your everyday life. You can find them at deoyn.com, that's dion.com, or on Instagram and Facebook to stay up to date. Thank you. So, Happy New Year to everyone. I know we are 16 days into the new year, or 17 when I upload this. Or should I say, meh, New Year. In many ways, I think that 2021 does feel a little bit like 2020 Part 2. I mean, it's kind of like that Lady Gaga meme. Instead of bus, club, another club, it's like fridge, snacks, living room, office, another snack, another snack, another snack, and it feels a little unending. But I hope for many of us that we've settled into our kind of January routines and we are moving forward with maybe a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with regard to the pandemic. And I'm just sending all the good positive vibes everyone's way to make sure that they have the kind of strength and tenacity to get through the next few months and this year, hopefully. Today on this podcast, I think for my first topic, I did want to talk about Veganuary. I can hear your eyes rolling. I think that polarizing would be an accurate word to describe it, but I think that, I mean, when I first did Veganuary, it was about 5 years ago, I think, and I don't want to be one of those people that's like, I was the first to do it. I was doing it before everyone else was doing it. I was doing it before it was cool. But I was doing it at the time when the UK supermarkets weren't really featuring that many vegan products. There wasn't that an entire aisle, or at least a section of an aisle, dedicated to vegan produce, and you kind of had to think of things and do the research a lot more. Now we have, literally diet plans and food to our door. But that's, I guess, one of the problems with vegan food that I'll get into is that kind of highly processed nature of a lot of vegan foods. But I mean, my philosophy with regard to food, I've probably said this to a couple of my friends that may be listening to this a million times, so I'm sorry that you're going to have to hear this again. But I I am a bit of a flexitarian, and by a bit of a flexitarian, I mean a huge flexitarian. I think on any given week, I'd say that I'm about between 80 to 90% plant based. And that for me just means that generally throughout the week, I'm eating vegan. On the weekends, I may indulge. Before 2020, when I went out to dinner, if I wanted to order a pizza with cheese, I would order a pizza with cheese. And I like my philosophy. I feel that it's a healthy relationship with food without feeling obliged to make kind of, I call it food noise, with that kind of pressure in your mind to like, oh, what decisions should I be making? And there's a lot of issues surrounding food, and your relationship with food should be a healthy and happy one. And my relationship with food goes up and down. I just mean that I try to put that out and hopefully it comes back to me. So with regard to Veganuary, I think that, or at least just being vegan and plant-based, I think there's a couple of topics that we kind of should cover underneath that, subtopics, if you will. The environment is obviously a huge factor, and probably the second driving factor when it comes to my decisions regarding food. There's health, cost, getting the right nutrients, my personal experiences, which I'll share a little bit more of, processing, getting supermarkets dragged into the 21st century. In England, we are a little bit slow to move with the tide. We do tend to follow American trends, but we still talk about the war over here, so it takes a moment. And I'd also like to discuss a little bit about some items that I discovered that aren't actually vegan, which I was shocked by. So I think that if I didn't know that they were fully vegan, or some of them versions of that products weren't fully vegan, I think other people won't know as well. So I think with the environment, I'll just get started. I mean, if you're eating whole plant-based foods, i.e. food from the ground, like tofu doesn't grow on the vine. Yes, it is made from a soya bean, but it is quite highly processed. It has to be packed, and then it's sealed in plastic, then it's flown across the world and stuff like that. So they say that, soy protein is really, really water intensive, but I think the majority of soy production is actually for agriculture and feeding them. The cattle, and I guess chickens are eating a lot of soy products because it's high in protein and it's pretty cheap to produce, so I get it. So I'm trying to set the argument up and then bash down what I think about it. I mean, I think it's quite well known that when we're producing cattle and meat, it's incredibly water intensive. I think it's something like, for a pound of chicken, it takes 440 litres of water. Listen, if you're growing anything, it takes quite a lot of water. You'll know if you grow carrots at home or whatever, when you're watering them, it's taking a lot of water. But I think particularly for agriculture and growing livestock, it's quite water intensive. So I suppose the argument with that is that if you're eating plant-based, it does reduce on water, and we have a bit of a crisis at the moment with water and drought in certain places. So that completely makes sense. And also diverting natural water, into dams and then onto fields, and then it's then made into produce that then feeds the cattle. So it's a whole thing. I know that the animal protein industry, the sort of agriculture side of it, does have a high amount of emissions. The emissions are, I think, they're higher than the entire transport industry, which, if we can put that into our mind, so that's planes, cars, boats, every mode of transport, and then we've got agriculture being a higher driver of CO2 emissions. It's quite a shocking amount, I think. So I suppose the argument there is, yes, you can reduce and feel like you're doing something for the planet, even though it feels difficult to do something big in a world that is so big when you're so small. But that is just the kind of fact, I guess, with regard to the environment in that respect. Now, conversely, what I wanted to say is that when you go to the vegan aisle in the supermarket, everything's packaged up in plastic. It's very highly processed because it's like we're turning beans into a burger, we're turning pea protein into a chicken nugget, we're turning soya beans into, I don't know, fucking mac and cheese, whatever. So I get that that is also high intensity. It's produced in a factory, it doesn't grow from the ground. So I guess basically the kind of learning curve with that is, yes, it's maybe better for the environment to eat vegan, but it's not exactly good for the environment. It's just better. And I think that the closer that we can get to the actual real food, a vegetable is a real food, it grows. A bean is a real piece of food, it's a whole protein. Grains, they are a real piece of food that exists in nature. You know, I think that's basically where you should push yourself with regard to Veganuary. Um, I think health wise, first of all, I want to kind of preface this by saying that no one on this earth should feel obliged to participate in Veganuary if you don't want to. You shouldn't feel as if other people are pressuring you into it. I try not to come from the kind of you should be doing this when I'm talking about my personal diet and food thing. It's just what works for me. I'm not trying to convince other people to do something. I'll give you the facts, then you need to make your decision. If you want that chicken nugget, if you want to continue with your salmon, go ahead. I still indulge in those from time to time, so I have no grounds to inform the general public what they should be doing. And so I think with regard to mental health, look after yourself. Make sure that your whole life is not about restriction. I think the good thing about Veganuary is you should think about it as like, I'm adding things into my diet. I'm adding more veg. I'm adding tofu. And then you'll kind of remove the need for animal products in that respect. I think that's one of the ways that I did it back in, I think, 2015 when I first started doing plant-based. I'm just sipping ginger and lemon tea so that my raspy tones are great when I hypnotize you all. um, so mental health is a huge part of it. Personally, I feel better when I eat more vegetables, and I think most people would. Um, Even if it's just to check the box, oh, I'm eating healthy, it actually feels good to eat healthy, then I think slowly you start to see the side effects of feeling lighter on your feet, you have more energy, your mood is more balanced. That's just my personal experience. But with regard to health, I'm reading here that the statistics regarding lifespan and life expectancy, vegetarian men live 9.5 years longer, respectively, to omnivores, according to Peter. 9.5 years is hugely significant. That is basically the difference between a quote third world country and a Western first world country in lifespan. So I actually find that very, very interesting. Um, I've looked at the diagrams. They'll show you an artery of an omnivore and an artery of a vegetarian and then an artery of a vegan person. And we basically get this kind of plaque that builds up in our arteries when we consume, I think it's saturated fat and trans fats. And basically you'll look at like an omnivore, it's kind of clogged up a little bit, which is putting pressure on the heart. The heart's having to work harder to get the blood around your body because the arteries aren't able to process as much. Vegetarian, it's less so. Vegan, it's nearly non-existent. And this isn't also in the diagram. This is because it's been, I mean, there's been like 20, 30-year studies on this. So we all know, I think by this point, I would say, respectively, eating more vegetables. I'm not going to say that being vegan is healthier, but I think, respectively, eating more fruit and veg and plant-based things is obviously going to be healthier for us. I mean, that's what we learn as a child, isn't it? Eat your fruit and vegetables, eat your 5 a day. And I think for many of us now, you know, we're having our smoothie bowls with our oatmeal, with berries and things. We're eating like 7 to 10 vegetables a day, which is probably where you should aim at, in my opinion. So health, I think, is important. But conversely with that, I have done full plant-based and full veganism. I think I dropped down to about 135 pounds, which is about 9.5 stone if you're listening in the UK. I'm a 5'10" male. I'm quite broad. I'm quite barrel-chested, and I'm a big bitch. But like, I'm not. I'm certainly not overweight now, but that weight on my frame is like emaciated, and it was because I was eating a lot of raw vegan foods. I'd kind of all but cut out bread, pastas, wraps, you know, processed carbohydrates, and I, I still had the energy, but I think looking back, you can get a little too involved in it. So I think it's important to check in with yourself, check in with other people. If people are telling you that you're not looking that great, you should probably listen to what they say. It's like that saying, if you meet more than one asshole in a day, odds are you're the asshole. So if one person or more says that you look a bit too thin in a day, it might be they're oversharing. No, I'm just kidding. But people that love you and they're telling you maybe this isn't the healthiest option, you can trust them. Obviously, people are just sharing their opinions when it's not warranted. It is what it is. But yeah, my personal experience, I think I was just doing a little too much and not maybe feeding myself enough or getting the right things. So, obviously, doing Veganuary for a month, I think for the majority of us, it's not going to cause any adverse health concerns. I think at this point, when I'm talking about before, I'd probably been doing it for about six, maybe 5 to 6 months, and I was the weight just falls off. And I think that it's important to make sure that you are getting the right sustenance and also having, the food pyramid. You need this amount of carbs, you need X amount of protein, X amount of veg. Um, so doing the correct research, and if you're not that inclined to be doing the research, go online and find the right plans and use a trusted source like Peter or I think even Joe Wicks does some of the vegan plans. I think you can more or less trust those kind of healthy, rounded meals to make sure that you're getting the right vitamins and the right nutrients. Obviously, it's easy in this life to kind of think that we're a little bit robotic, especially young people. You kind of feel a little bit invincible, I think, in your 20s because you're not expecting to have health concerns, but then sometimes it just bonks you on the head and you have an issue. So my point in saying that is I think that, I mean, there's good vegan products out there. I think some of the tofus now are fortified with like B12 and vitamins. The plant-based milks, for which I'd say oat milk is my favorite. Almond, it's all right. Sometimes can be slightly marzipan-y if you don't like that flavor. Just depends on the brand. And hemp milk, pretty delicious. Soya is fine. I feel like it's better as a like a latte milk. Anyway, I digress. But all of those milks, like by Alpro and the oat one, I forgot which one it was. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say brands on this. But I'm not advertising, and this is not sponsored. I'm just telling you what I can see at the supermarket. But they're all fortified with vitamins. They're fortified with vitamin D, which you would maybe get from milk if you were, cow milk if you were drinking that. And they have B12 in them, I think, as well. So there's kind of, I think, health that's covered, at least physical health and a little bit of mental health. So I think it's just important to check in with yourself, document it, and keep a diary if it's new to you. If you're kind of a vegan or plant-based vet, this will not be information you don't already know. But I think it's important to just make sure that you're kind of well researched on these items and go out, buy some books, own a business, get a job. No, just kidding. But go to find people that have documented it. If reading isn't your thing, go online. There'll be people that have done plans, absolutely, on YouTube and all of that good stuff. My experience with Veganuary now is it used to be kind of fresh and fun, and I think this month, we're in 2021, it's a little bit gloomy. The kind of prognosis for the year feels a little glum, and so I'm trying to take into account the whole thing. I feel a little bit disenchanted with doing Veganuary this year. I'm still doing it. I'm finding that I'm being a little bit less creative. I mean, I have a stack of cookbooks that people have given me over Christmas and for my anniversary, so thank you to anyone that gave me them. And I'm going through them, just making marks on different recipes so that I have things to look up, because it can be easy in any kind of sense of the word to get stuck doing the same recipes over and over again. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably have seen some of the recipes that I do over and over again because they're delicious and I've mastered them. But it's important to get that variety into your diet and try different independent shops. Where I live, there are a couple of greengrocers. In the nearest city, there is a store, I think, called Out of This World in Leeds. If you're in Leeds, holla. and this is not sponsored again. They have like fun and interesting new products that you can try. Some of them aren't great, like vegan cheese. I don't think I found a vegan cheese that I really like. That I'm like, oh yes, put that all over my pizza. That it's just not the same. It's kind of gluey and a little pasty tasting. But I think the Violife coconut oil based cream cheese is, let's just say it's not offensive to the palate. But yeah, try the new products. If you see some, I don't know, some weird looking vegetable, some dragon fruit, buy it. You may not like it that much. And actually, kind of one of the secrets about these odd fruits is they're a little melon like. It's like, all right, this is fine. I'm not loving it, but it's all right. They're not as tropical flavored as kind of the really strong flavored passion fruits and mangoes that we already know. So, but yeah, it's important, I think, to just try and get some variety, and especially in these winter months. I mean, I think it's something like 40% of people in the UK are vitamin D deficient in the winter because, hi, son, where you at? Um, anyway, it is what it is. But I was actually reading on my little notes here. I did a little bit of research, I came prepared. And I wanted to share with you some vegan items that I did not expect to be vegan at all. Wait, did I say that right? I saw some items that I didn't expect were not vegan. Oh my god, I'm confusing everyone, I can tell. These items are not vegan and I thought they were. So let me share them with you. So, so I think it was businessinsider.com. I didn't take all of them down. I just took down the ones that are kind of shocking, at least to me. And these aren't all food-based. They're just sometimes household products or whatever. Anyway, I'll get into it. Tattoo ink. So for those vegans that have tattoos, I guess you need to ask your tattoo artist when you're allowed to go again and get some Chinese symbol that means udon soup on your arm. But the charcoal to make the dye has been made from burning animal bones. But there are vegan options available, so there's light at the end of the tunnel. But I just thought that was quite interesting, because I wouldn't think to even think about that, but you have to look at everything. Is it in paint? It's in Skittles, carmine, it's in makeup, loads of things. Apple juice is sometimes clarified through fish bladders, which I find particularly unappealing. I know that there's some orange juice brands, it's not really a thing in the UK, not from what I've seen anyway, but in America where they put omega-3 fish oils in the orange juice. So like, I guess you're giving your kid a glass of orange juice for breakfast and they have omega-3, 6 and 9 in there. It is what it is. But apple juice, yeah, clarified using fish bladders. I get that like cloudy apple juice, you might want it to be clear, but putting it through a fish bladder, I don't know. I don't know about that. Jams, or in America, jellies. Sometimes the fruit, instead of using pectin, they would use gelatin to kind of help the jam solidify. Another thing that I actually makes sense now that I'm reading about it, because some jams are very jelly and kind of chewy like, but I wouldn't think, oh, does it have gelatin in? Same with paintballs, when people go paintballing and they shoot all their friends, super healthy activity. The paintballs have gelatin in them, so I guess if you're buying into going paintballing, you're buying into using gelatin. I don't know if there's any vegan options available for that. It was very limited. Some alcohols. So I believe that they're putting different dyes and things into wine that have, or vodkas or whatever, that have had animal products put into them. So I guess it's just check that your wine says vegan or organic or whatever you're into. White sugar. So this was actually shocking to me because I thought, well, it's just so processed that white sugar gets to a stage where it's like the castor white sugar is just white, right? No. Apparently the bone char is added to some brands to make the white sugar look particularly white. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, like processed sugar goes in cakes and things. I don't need it to look that white. Like I don't give a flying leap. But bone char is the natural carbon of bones of cattles to achieve the white color that we all so love when we look at sugars. I don't know. I don't really use white sugar that much anymore. Is anyone with me on that? Like, I'd rather buy like a golden castor, or something that's a little bit more natural. I think coconut sugar is a great, quote, sugar-free, unquote, fructose version that we can all use instead. Some sodas, or fizzy pops, as we would say in the UK, um, have insect-derived dyes. So again, I think that's carmine. So basically it's like crushed up beetle shells. I don't know who thinks this. I know it's a thing, like a lot of us, like who thought to milk a cow for the first time? And who thought, I'm just going to take this beetle, pull off its wings or its shell on the back end, crush that up and mix it with some chemicals, and oh my god, it's red. Okay, let's coat this in a Skittle. Like, I just find these things super interesting. Detergents is another one. Um, this one is quite shady, I think. They basically have, quote, fatty acids, unquote, in the ingredients. And upon reaching out to different detergent companies for your washing up, when you're washing your clothes, they were like, oh, they're a little bit kind of vague about it. But fatty acids can often mean that it's kind of derived from the animal protein. It's because I'm assuming that in these factories, they have a huge amount of um, animal kind of waste that's probably gonna, it's like it needs boiling up after it's been processed, so they have to use it in that respect. Anyways, that's kind of my spiel on Veganuary. I don't want to make this too long. I don't want to, I wouldn't put anyone through listening to me talk for maybe over half an hour without a guest on. But that's my spiel with Veganuary, and I just want to open up a dialogue. I think I want to hear your opinions on Veganuary, any questions. Um, you can find me on Instagram at Nicholas Flannery, Twitter at Nick_Flannery, on YouTube as Nicholas Flannery, where I will be posting this podcast. This podcast is going to be available where you get your podcasts, which is the Apple podcast app, which I think most of us have if we have an iOS device. I'm going to be posting it on YouTube, and for Android users, I'm going to be using Castbox. I think in the meantime, to post the podcast there, I may switch to Podbean, but I'll put everything in a description, or I'll add in something at the end of this video I'm recording, so that you can find where these podcasts are. But I wanted to thank you for, if you've made it this far on my first podcast. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate the support, and I'm looking forward to this year. I feel that this year will be better than last. It won't be easy, but I'm looking forward to it, and I can feel that there are going to be some good things that come out of it. I had a word with God. So thank you again for listening. I very much appreciate it, and I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you so much.